People do not get taken advantage of at work because they are weak. They get taken advantage of because they are kind. And somewhere along the way, that kindness was quietly mistaken for availability. There is a specific kind of person inside most offices. They are the one who stays late without being asked, the one who takes on extra tasks because they do not want to see a colleague struggle, and the one who says yes before they have even finished thinking about it. They answer messages on weekends, they apologize for things that are not their fault, and they smooth over conflict so that no one else feels uncomfortable. And they've been doing this for so long, they no longer notice they are doing it. Most people would call this person professional, dedicated, and easy to work with. But there is another word for what is happening to them. They are being drained. Not dramatically, not all at once, but slowly, quietly, through 1,000 small moments where their kindness was treated not as a gift, but as a resource to be used. And the most unsettling part is this: the people doing it are often not even aware of what they are doing. If you have ever felt this way inside a corporate environment, you already know the feeling does not come with a clear label. It doesn't feel like betrayal. It doesn't feel like abuse. It feels like exhaustion you cannot fully explain. You finish a long day and realize that most of your energy went toward other people's problems. You look at your own task list and wonder when you stopped being a priority, even to yourself. You think about a colleague who does half the work and seems unbothered, who says no without guilt, who leaves exactly on time and sleeps soundly. And you wonder, what is wrong with me? The answer is nothing. What is happening to you is not a personality flaw, it is a pattern. It's a very specific psychological dynamic that plays out inside hierarchical environments, and it targets people with a very specific set of traits: empathy, conscientiousness, and a deep discomfort with conflict. These are not weaknesses, they are genuinely valuable human qualities. But inside certain workplace cultures, they are also vulnerabilities, because the system does not reward kindness for its own sake. It rewards output. And if your kindness produces output, emotional labor, extra tasks, absorbing other people's stress, the system will draw from it, quietly and consistently, until there is very little left. Most kind people inside corporate environments carry a particular kind of tiredness. Not just physical, not just mental, it's something closer to the feeling of having given more than you ever planned to give, and still not feeling like enough. To understand why this happens, you need to look at how most workplaces actually function, not how they present themselves, but how they operate in practice. Most organizations are not designed to protect the well-being of their employees. They are designed to extract productivity from them. This is not a cynical observation, it's simply the structural reality of how most corporate environments are built. And inside that structure, certain behavioral types are enormously useful. The employee who never pushes back saves management hours of negotiation. The person who absorbs extra workload without complaint removes the need for additional hiring. The one who manages team morale, informally, without title or compensation, keeps the group functional, without the company having to invest in anything. Kind people do all of this naturally, almost automatically, and because they do it quietly, it rarely gets named, it rarely gets compensated. It is simply expected, and then gradually expanded. This is what organizational researchers sometimes call the accumulation of invisible labor, the work that keeps an environment running but never appears in a job description. It's the emotional management, the social repair work, the willingness to absorb friction so that others do not have to. In most workplaces, this labor flows consistently toward the most empathetic people. And there is a specific mechanism that makes this happen. It is not malice, it is psychology. When someone is consistently accommodating, the people around them, consciously or not, begin to recalibrate their expectations. What was once a favor becomes a baseline. What was once appreciated becomes assumed. Over time, the kind person is no longer thanked for saying yes. They are only noticed when they say no. And because saying no feels so costly, the guilt, the discomfort, the fear of being seen as difficult, they rarely do. So the pattern continues. The requests grow, the boundaries soften further, and the person at the center of it all continues functioning while quietly wondering how they ended up here.
There is a psychological concept worth understanding here. It is called the fawn response. Most people are familiar with fight or flight, but fewer people know that many individuals, particularly those raised in environments where conflict felt unsafe, develop a third default: appeasing, smoothing things over, making themselves agreeable, and prioritizing other people's comfort over their own. This response was often adaptive early in life. In certain families, in certain schools, in certain social environments, being liked and being safe were closely linked. Causing friction felt genuinely dangerous. By adulthood, this pattern is usually automatic. It does not feel like a strategy, it simply feels like who you are. And when this person enters a corporate environment, especially a hierarchical one with real power dynamics, they carry that pattern with them. They learn quickly which behaviors get rewarded: being cooperative, being available, and never making things difficult. And they optimize for those behaviors, often without realizing it is an optimization at all. The result is a slow, structural erosion of personal boundaries. Not because someone violated them dramatically, but because over years of small accommodations, those boundaries quietly moved. This is one of the reasons burnout in kind people often looks different from burnout in driven or ambitious people. The driven person exhausts themselves chasing goals. Their burnout is loud, and it often ends in visible collapse. The kind person exhausts themselves managing other people's experience of the workplace. Their burnout is quiet. It accumulates below the surface for years. They continue functioning, they continue being described as reliable and professional, and they continue producing. But something inside them has gone flat. They stop feeling genuinely engaged in their work. They stop caring about outcomes they once cared about. And they still do the tasks, but the emotional investment that once made those tasks feel meaningful has quietly left. This is what emotional numbness looks like in a professional context, and it is almost always misdiagnosed as laziness, disengagement, or a lack of ambition. It is none of those things. It is the aftermath of chronic overextension in a system that never asked how you were doing. Anyone who has spent enough years inside corporate environments begins to notice certain patterns. There is always a specific person on every team who carries far more weight than their job title would suggest, who somehow handles the emotional fallout when projects go badly, and who mediates between difficult personalities without ever being asked to. This person is rarely the highest paid person on the team, and they are rarely the one being fast-tracked into leadership, but they are indispensable, and the people around them know it. What most people do not realize is that this indispensability is also a trap. Organizations do not promote the person who holds everything together. They rely on that person to stay exactly where they are. Because if that person left, the cost would be enormous, not just in output, but in the invisible social infrastructure they have quietly built and maintained for years. Promoting them would mean acknowledging what they actually do, and acknowledging it would mean compensating it. So instead, the work gets normalized. The person gets told they are a cultural asset, and they get praised in ways that feel meaningful but change nothing structurally. And they often accept this because kind people are almost by definition not comfortable advocating loudly for themselves. There is another pattern that becomes visible over time. The people who are the most consistently available, who respond fastest, who volunteer most readily, who are always there when something is needed, these people are often the ones closest to burnout. Their availability is not a sign of well-being. It is often a symptom of eroded boundaries, of having learned, somewhere along the way, that their value was. This dynamic does not exist in isolation. It's part of something larger. It's a broader cultural system that has been normalizing psychological overextension for decades and actively rewarding the people most willing to sustain it. Modern work culture does not just ask for your labor, it asks for your identity. Being productive is not enough. You are supposed to be passionate about your productivity.
You are supposed to be personally invested in outcomes. You are supposed to bring your whole self, your creativity, your emotions, your discretionary effort, and offer them to the organization willingly. And the people most likely to do this are the people who care most deeply, the conscientious, the empathetic, the ones who were told at some point that caring is a virtue. They were not wrong to internalize that. Caring is a virtue. But inside a system that treats caring as a productivity variable, something to be optimized, extracted, and replaced when depleted, that virtue becomes something closer to a liability. This is the fundamental contradiction of modern corporate culture. It markets itself as a place where good values are rewarded, collaboration, teamwork, and going above and beyond. But structurally, it rewards compliance, availability, and the willingness to absorb costs that the organization should be carrying itself. And the people who absorb those costs most readily are the people who already find it hardest to stop. The attention economy makes this worse. Notifications do not distinguish between urgent and unimportant. Every message arrives with the same visual weight, and every unanswered email carries the same low hum of implied obligation. For someone already predisposed to over-responsibility, this environment is psychologically relentless. There is no natural stopping point. There is always one more thing that could be addressed, one more person who might need something, and one more task that could be done before tomorrow. Many kind people are not living their lives anymore. They are managing other people's experience of their lives, and they are exhausted in a way that does not fully go away, not with sleep, not with weekends, not with vacation, because the exhaustion is not physical, it is structural. It is built into the way they have learned to exist inside the system. Understanding this does not immediately make it stop, but it changes something important. When you can see the system, when you can name the mechanism instead of just feeling its weight, you stop experiencing it as a personal failing. The problem is not that you are too sensitive, and the problem is not that you care too much. The problem is that you are inside a system that was not designed to protect the people who care most, and you have been operating inside that system with very few of the defenses that less empathetic people carry naturally. That is not weakness. That is a structural mismatch. And here's what matters most. Recovery, and I use that word deliberately, does not begin by stopping caring. It begins by redirecting some of that care toward yourself. The instinct to make others comfortable is not something to be extinguished, but it can be recalibrated. Saying no is not cruelty. Having a limit is not selfishness, and allowing a colleague to experience discomfort without immediately moving to absorb it for them, that is not a failure of kindness. That is what a sustainable version of kindness actually looks like, the version that does not destroy you over time. Awareness by itself does not change your environment, but it can stop you from blaming yourself for a system that was designed to extract from exactly the kind of person you are. That is not a small thing. If conversations about workplace psychology, emotional exhaustion, and the hidden dynamics of modern corporate culture resonate with you, consider subscribing. There is a great deal happening beneath the surface of professional life that most people feel deeply, but rarely hear named clearly. Most kind people inside corporate environments will never be told what is happening to them. They will be praised, they will be relied upon, and they will be described as indispensable and professional and a pleasure to work with. And they will continue, for years sometimes, absorbing more than was ever fair to ask of them, while answering emails, while staying late, and while making sure everyone else has what they need, all while quietly losing access to the version of themselves that existed before the system learned how much they were willing to give. That may be the most underestimated cost of modern workplace culture. Not the overwork, not the hours, but the slow, almost imperceptible erosion of the people who were too kind to push back. Thank you for watching. Take care of your kindness. It is a genuine quality. Just make sure some of it is directed toward yourself.